Hello, this is the third out of four sections of Pamela that we are reading. And this one is the one that ends very happily in that she gets to marry her master, and we're all meant to be extremely pleased for her. There are a couple of things I want to mention before we talk about it in class. One is that the way the text is handled here is working in about three different ways. Pamela is writing this as a series of letters to her parents, and then sometimes just as a journal, and then sometimes as a summary of letters she's already sent. The summaries operate in two ways. One is to summarize for her parents letters that may have gone astray, but the other is that we're beginning volume 2, which would have been an actual separate book. Like you would have had volume 1 and volume 2, and you probably got to check only one out from a library at a time. So the summary also works extradiegetically for us to get a summary and remind us of what we've read in volume 1. The letters then are still for her parents. They're partly a journal, and eventually they become written for Mr. B also, once he insists on seeing her letters, then she knows he's one of the audience. Okay. When that happens, well, so she's rhetorically writing for her parents or herself, and then once she knows Mr. B is a reader, she's writing for him also. And when she's writing for him, she has this extra motive, which doesn't necessarily turn up in the text. There's no place to point to where she's writing for him things that she wouldn't have written otherwise. But we think about narrators and narratees and the different people to whom she's writing. We also know Mrs. Jukes reads her letters as well, and I doubt that anyone else does, but they go between different people on their way trying to get to her parents. And so we, as an implied reader, have a variety of narratees to choose from. We probably still choose from the position of her parents, and maybe the position of Pamela when she's writing a diary for herself. But this is also the section where it becomes clear that she's been sewing the letters into her clothes. And when Mrs. Jukes rips them out and Mr. B is reading them, he's reading them very sympathetically. And it makes us align ourselves at least a little bit with him, because we want to read sympathetically as well, which might allow us to have this change of heart about Mr. B. It probably doesn't, just because we are looking for character continuity. But if we could set that aside and think about this just as a rhetorical strategy, the strategy works because we are now reading along with Mr. B, and he's affirming our reading of the text, which is that he was in the wrong and now has come to see the light. And once he affirms that reading of the text, we're allowed to see him as a good guy. Now, again, if we're determined to see him as a person and Pamela as someone who's actually falling in love, that doesn't pan out. But rhetorically, and if we attend to the readers and the function of the letters, it does strategically work in terms of aligning us as real readers with an implied reader with a narratee. It also does this beautiful thing of aligning Pamela and her body, where she's hiding the letters, with Pamela, the book, and the body of text, which is where we get the letters. So, and I've mentioned this before, but just as Mr. B is reading these letters when he's not supposed to be, and the same is true of others at various points, we are reading these letters when they're not addressed to us as well. And that's a further way in which we and Mr. B are aligned, and in which we are meant to learn from Mr. B how to read these letters, which is to say, to fall in love with Pamela. And presumably we would have done this already, but his falling in love with her and being won over by the letters instructs us as a reader how to approach them. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind while you're reading this section of Pamela, which I hope you like a lot, because the next section is harder.